Hello, YouTube. Today we're going to start talking about our credit collection and debt as we talked about doing the other day. One of the things I want to go and talk about is how we deal with credit bureaus. A lot of people think that by fixing your credit through using the credit bureaus, that's going to help you. Actually, the credit bureaus work with the creditors that are putting the negative information on your credit report in the first place. A lot of people sign up for companies like Credit Karma, and there's some others out there that say if you sign up with us, you can make challenges to anything that's negative on your credit report. But if you notice what those companies do, they will have you to electronically input the information. They ask you what's wrong, and they ask you to tell them what's wrong with the credit report. And then if you specifically tell them what the issues are, they will simply fix those issues based on what you told them, and then they'll say that the profile has been corrected based on what the subscriber said. A better way to do it is not to use necessarily their system in correcting your credit report, but you need to send in hard copies of uh, your disputes or your complaints about what may not be correct in that credit report, and not necessarily use the online version of what Credit Karma and others have. While in most cases that's effective, but if you have a very low credit score, is in the 4 or 500s, and you're trying to get it in the 6 or 700s, you really need to look at the information provided by creditkarma.com and others, because those are free credit reports, and then challenge those things that are not necessarily correct or positive in your credit report. But just know that whether you get your credit information from Credit Karma or some of the other free online sources, you're entitled as a consumer to one free credit report every year anyway. So you can actually write the individual credit bureaus and provide your information, your name, your address, your telephone number, where you've lived the previous 5 years, any married or other names that you've gone by, and your social security number and birthday, and they will usually send you a copy of your credit report. So when you do that and you look at your credit report, you'll find that sometimes there are entries in there that are not necessarily correct. And with all of the identity theft and the things that are going on now, it's a good practice, if you don't do it every 6 months, to do it at least once a year, to check your credit report for inaccuracies and then correct those inaccuracies. Believe it or not, a lot of challenges to credit reports, especially for information that's been on that report for over 2 years, will come off usually within the first challenge. What you do, you write your challenge letters, and you will dispute anything that's incorrect. If the amount is incorrect, the date of it, if items have been on the credit report for more than 7 years, but they're still being reported, all of those things can come off that credit report. Just because there's a rule that says that negative information can be on the report for up to 7 years, it doesn't mean that it has to stay on there for 7 years. Actually, the negative information stays on your credit report until it's challenged. The other thing is, it's just because 7 years has expired doesn't necessarily mean that the credit bureaus will take that information off of your credit report. Sometimes the consumer has to take a very proactive stance and challenge the information to have it removed. Judgments, bankruptcies, liens, student loan debts, IRS debts, state tax debts, if those things have been on your credit report for more than 7 years, you can request to have those things removed. And unless they can be validated, and if they've been on there for more than 7 years, there's no reason that it should be validated, they need to be removed. Sometimes your credit score is held down by things that's annotated and should have been off the credit report a long time ago. But because the consumer never challenged it or asked for it to be removed, it stays. And some of that is by design. It's not by happen chance, especially if you live in certain zip codes that have been redlined for people that are not in the desirable income brackets. That's the way the game is played. So you'll order a copy of your credit report, you review it for accuracies or inaccuracies, and you challenge those things that are not accurate. So again, things that have been out there for more than 2 years are usually not going to be very verifiable, because if a department store, for example, had you documented for late payments and that account has since been closed or charged off or whatever, and it's been more than 2 years since that happened, in order for the credit bureau to verify that debt, they have to write that company, and you want to request that the verification be in writing. That costs money, and they're usually not going to do that. So rather than to verify it, a lot of times the companies will just ignore it. The other thing is to send in the challenge more than once. If you send in the first one, let's say November 1st, you send in a challenge letter and you wait until November 17th or 18th to send in the second one, they have to respond to each and every challenge that you do. So if they, what happens many times is the credit bureau will get the first challenge letter and they'll send out the information if they do it at all. And then when they get the second one, they'll figure that it's a duplication, and they'll leave it. Admit sometimes that, oh, well, we got that as a duplication, and they won't send out the proper responses to the second one. Well, it doesn't work that way. They have to respond to each and every challenge, and if they don't, the negative information must be removed from the credit report. So there are lots of things that you can do to make sure that that the information in your credit report is absolutely correct. The law requires that the information that's reported about you is absolutely accurate, because not only does your credit report dictate the things that you can buy, the credit you can get, but it also determines things about your rates for insurance, whether or not you're going to qualify for a certain interest rate on a house or a vehicle or whatever. And in a lot of cases, uh, employers use your credit report as a character reference, especially in law enforcement or any job that's going to pay you above $60,000 a year. They will pull your credit report as a character reference, especially for you guys that do any kind of work in the insurance industry, for example. So you want to make sure that that information in that report is absolutely verifiably correct. And if it isn't, you have a right to have it removed and have it updated and have it verified. You don't have to pay a person six, 800, 1,000, $2,000 to clean up your credit. You can actually do it yourself. You just have to take the time and the discipline. All it costs you is a postage stamp. But you have to be able to look at the information, read it carefully, interpret it, and then look for those things that are not correct. If you have more questions, you can send me an email at johncarter0729 at gmail.com. That's johncarter0729 at gmail.com. And I'll be happy to assist you with this process. Now, we also at Consumer Financial Service Center help folks to deal with their credit issues. We also will go out and do the challenges on your behalf. How our organization works is that you don't pay until your credit is improved. We have a cap of $225 to help a person get their credit report updated and cleaned up. Sometimes it can take 60 days. Most of the times it can take up to 180 days or even longer. It depends on what their credit profile is. But you don't pay us anything unless there's and until there's a significant improvement in your credit report, your profile, of the score. And once that happens, there's a $225 cap is all you pay, no matter how long it took us to do it, no matter what the credit looked like initially. That's all you have to pay. I'll come back later with part two of what we're going to be discussing further as far as the credit goes.